All right, we are live. Hello, everyone watching back on YouTube. You're probably watching the replay if you see me live right now. I will be posting kind of a link in the first comment. I'll pin the comment when the video actually starts. I'm just waiting for people to come here in the live stream. Today I want to be talking a little bit about faith and some of the misconceptions about faith and really what I think faith truly is. So if you want to hear about faith, go check out the first comment and I'll pin that when the video starts. But we got people jumping here in the live stream. What's up? Oh, what's up? All the way from Philly. Good stuff. Case Kirby, Kyle Jord. Good to see you guys. How you guys doing? I'm right here at my favorite coffee shop right here in Vancouver. Just enjoying a little bit of a cold brew and figured I'd go live. It's been a while since I've gotten online with you guys and just want to hang out. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about faith, but if you're watching this live right now, go ahead and comment down below where you are watching from, and I'll give a couple shout outs in the first couple of minutes here at the very beginning, and give this video a thumbs up if you're excited to hang out this morning. Hey there, Grayson. I've been watching your Philippines vlogs. Hopefully you've been having a good time. Let me know when you get back in town and we'll grab a coffee here. Detroit, Australia. All right, down under, what's up? That's cool. Streaming from Trinidad, from Texas, Orlando, South Carolina, London, West Virginia. Man, awesome. Very cool. Good to see you guys, man. It's good to see you guys. So as people are hanging out here, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up so more people can hang out with us this morning. But I'll show you guys around my favorite coffee shop a little bit. It's like a place where people can come and get like all these different like antique furniture and stuff like that. It's all donated here to the shop, and then people will buy it, and then it's donated to nonprofit organizations here in the local area. Something that's right here, I just found this in the morning today. Encouraging words, take one. And then right here, the staff of the coffee shop offered to pray for you. That's pretty cool. Obviously, this place must be run by Christians, so it's pretty cool. Got a bunch of Canadians here in the live stream. What's up, Kyle, Rihanna, Juliet, Rose? Good to see you guys. Poland, very cool, guys. And if you look right across from me, there's a little tree house. This is where all the kids can play. Parents come here and just basically hang out. All right. Cool. So today I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about faith. And, you know, there's this idea I guess it's misconception a lot of people have about faith, and they say that faith is blind. And basically what they think about it when they think about the word faith, especially if you weren't raised in a Christian context, or even if you weren't, a lot of times they'll say, oh, you just got to have faith, you got to trust, you just got to believe, and that's a difficult thing for a lot of skeptics to do. And the reason why, and I get this, is because many people want to believe in something that they have evidence for, that they can reason through. And I think that this is actually really, really good. You know, they talk about, why do you believe in God? Well, you just have faith. And that's not really helpful. You know, if someone said, well, why don't you believe in unicorns or leprechauns or the tooth fairy? You know, you just have faith that they believe, that they exist. And a lot of skeptics will say things that, you know, oh, there's just as much evidence for leprechauns as there is evidence for God. And that's, you know, that's the way that many people look at it. It's like, you know, why don't you believe in Thor? Why don't you believe in some of like a lot of these other gods that could exist? Why the God of the Bible? And a lot of Christians just simply say that you need to have faith. And this is a really backwards way of going at it. And I think that this is actually a destructive way to look at faith, and as a Christian I'm saying this, and so I'm going to share with you guys why I don't think that faith is blind. You know, faith isn't the kind of thing like, say you walk up to a cliff and, you know, there's just, you're at the edge of the cliff, there's clouds everywhere, and you just jump off. Like that's not the kind of faith that God wants you to have. Sorry, I'm looking around, I've got people just watching every once in a while at the live stream in public, and it's a little interesting. But faith isn't like this blind faith. That's not the kind of faith that God wants us to have. I'll give you an example, and this is one of my favorite examples. You know, there's a disciple in the Bible. Jesus, as you know, had 12 disciples. One of his disciples was named Thomas. And Thomas got a very bad rap. At least most people nowadays know Thomas as, quote unquote, the doubting disciple. So to give you a little bit of the backstory, Jesus had just died, and he had been telling everyone, for years in his ministry that he would die and that he would be resurrected. But for whatever reason, his disciples didn't quite get the message. So, Mary and Mary Magdalene, went to the tomb, found the empty tomb, comes back to the disciples and tells the disciples, hey, Jesus' tomb is empty and Jesus has risen. And a lot of the disciples were excited about this. They're kind of confused. But one disciple, Thomas, basically said, you know what? Unless I see, and this is in John chapter 20, if you want to check it out. John chapter 20, and it's verse 24. It says, but Thomas, called the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. The other disciples told him, we saw the master. And he says, unless I see the nails in his hands, put my finger in the nail holes, and stick my hand in his sides, I won't believe it. Thomas's initial reaction to the resurrection of Jesus was like, there's no way that could happen. In other words, his faith wasn't willing to accept something just blindly. And this is how a lot of skeptics feel about this kind of a thing. And I think that this is good. Notice how Jesus responds. Jesus doesn't actually ever condemn Thomas. In fact, in verse 26, it says, 8 days later, his disciples were in the room. Then Thomas was with him, and Jesus came through the doors. Then he focuses his attention on Thomas and says, take your finger, examine my hands, take your hand and stick it in my sides. Don't be unbelieving, believe. Jesus' response to Thomas wasn't, oh, you can't believe because there's no evidence. Oh, you're done with, get out of here. Just like you're done away with. No, Jesus said, listen, if you are struggling with faith, if you're struggling with belief, let me give you reasons to believe. Let me give you evidence. And so here's where I think that so many people get faith wrong. Faith is not blind. Faith is actually based off of evidence. Hebrews chapter 11:1 talks about how faith and evidence are intertwined. Faith is the evidence of things hoped for. There you go, Zach. Thank you for quoting it in the live stream. Faith is tied to evidence. One of my favorite verses is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 21. It says this: test all things and hold fast to what is good. In other words, the Christian attitude shouldn't just be, oh, blindly accept everything. The Christian attitude should be, okay, here's an idea, and I want to test it. I want to investigate it, much like the scientific method. I want to examine the evidence. Is it true that the things that you are saying are true? Now, that's true with biblical things. That's true with theology, but that's also true with just our belief in God in general. It's not just something that you need to accept on blind faith. This is the kind of thing that we can know through evidence. And so that's why I believe that faith is not supposed to be blind. And a lot of Christians will say that faith should be blind, but I think that they're misinterpreting the Bible. They may be well-intentioned, but I don't think that this is exactly what Jesus is looking to us to have. So there are my ideas on faith. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll check out some of the comments right now, and we'll respond and see if you guys have any other questions or comments on it. But that's just the little nugget that I want to share with you guys. I was reading through the story of Thomas this morning and thought I'd share that with you guys. So let's see, checking out here. There's a lot of comments. Let's trying to sift through here. Oh, okay, Dom says a little testimony. One of my good friends who I invited to youth group yesterday, never been to church but got saved last night. Dom, that is awesome, dude. Congratulations to your friend, and kudos to you, man, for inviting your friends to your church. I think that's awesome. It's super, super cool. All right, let's go through a couple different questions. Okay, so Haley is saying that people say that they know God is real because of how they've changed. That's not proof that will stir someone to truly believe. That's emotion. Yeah, that's a good point. Your experience with God is helpful in only certain contexts. I think it's helpful to you because you know that God is real because you're the one experiencing him, but it's not the most helpful thing in trying to convince someone else. So there's a place for it, but maybe it's not the end-all be-all that some people would say. There you go. Let's see. Just because they believe Superhill's sister is asking, what do I think about the phrase taking a leap of faith? I think that there may be times in our life where we have to take a leap of faith, but I think it's less of like jumping off a cliff into the abyss, and it's more like rock climbing. So I used to rock climb a lot, and if you're doing rock climbing, you get eventually high up, and when you're done with the route, you kind of have to jump off the wall, but you're not doing this blindly. I mean, you have a rope there, and you know the person who's belaying you, the person who's at the very bottom of the mountain, kind of holding you up, and you trust that that person's not going to like just let you fall to your death. And you don't just trust them because you've never met them, you trust them because you know that person and you've hung out with them and you have a relationship with them. So you're able to say, you know what, there's not 100% certainty that the person who's holding the rope is going to like keep me secure, but I know them well enough that I can trust their heart, I can trust their intentions, and I think that that's the way it is with God. I think that you can trust because you know Him and if you've experienced Him, that when God leads you down a path that maybe is kind of scary or weird, I believe that when you are faced with that decision, it's a lot easier to make that decision because you know who God is and you can trust Him. So yeah. Let's see. Oh, good question. Alexa, how do you have faith blind nowadays with Jesus not around to show us His wounds? Okay, so it's a lot easier. Back in those days, obviously, you know, Thomas is able to literally like touch Jesus. Today, I think we have a lot of different arguments that are really, really helpful. So I'm actually working on a series of videos, like 3-part video. How do we know that the Bible is trustworthy? Though that doesn't quite exactly answer your question, that'll take it maybe one step further. But I would look into a subject called Christian apologetics, where basically it's like a realm of philosophy where it talks about the arguments for God's existence. So there's evidence for the resurrection of Jesus. There's evidence from cosmology, and there's a lot of different scientific and philosophical arguments for it. Not something that I can get into at this point in time, but I'll probably end up doing some videos on it in the future. But if you're interested, look up a ministry called Reasonable Faith by Dr. William Lane Craig, and that's actually a really great place to start that I would suggest. All right. Larissa is asking a question: how do you help someone who's doubting their faith after being a long-time believer? So if they're a long-time believer, I would encourage them to remember their experience with God. You know, if they've been a long-time believer, chances are, I mean, if they're truly believers, God has worked in their life. And I think it's important for us to go back on occasion to remember where God has led us in the past and the experiences that He's given us and kind of like the miracles that He's worked. And so I would encourage them to kind of recount the past and recount where God has led them, and then to really just see, okay, where have I maybe not been as diligent in like writing down those examples, and where have I not been diligent in kind of like really seeking after God leading. So what I find in my life is where I don't really experience as much faith with God is kind of when I get complacent, because if I'm doing everything that is just comfortable, there's no need for faith and there's no need for that trust in God as much. And so I challenge them to take a step forward in faith, to challenge themselves and to really seek what God is trying to lead them to do. Darius makes a good suggestion. A good way to prove evidence is through Bible prophecies, like the ones in Daniel and Revelation. Very good. Yes, awesome. I've done a couple prophecy seminars in the past where I've taught prophecies on like Daniel and Revelation, and I would agree there's a lot in the book of Daniel and Revelation that are really solid stuff that's very helpful. Actually, one of my really close friends, Anthony, was an atheist, and he gave his heart to Jesus because of prophecies that he had read in Daniel and Revelation. And if I get the chance to connect with him, I'd love to share kind of his experience with you guys all, and to just kind of share some of the things that he had learned. So I think it'd be pretty cool. Brooklyn is asking, do you think a person can lose their faith? Like, do I follow Arminian or Calvinist belief? I'm not a 5-point Calvinist or a 5-point Arminian. I'm a little bit of a hybrid, but on the issue of can someone lose their faith, I do believe that it is a choice. So I believe if someone chooses to walk away from God, that God honors that choice. I know that's not the popular theology on the block right now, with Calvinists kind of like running the Christian media sphere, but that is what I believe. Yeah. Let's see what else. Dom, good question. Have I thought about making a video for someone's next steps after accepting Christ? I haven't quite, though. I think that's best done with a friend. So rather than like send someone a video and say, okay, now that you made this decision, here's what you do, and like kind of like resign yourself from the equation, I'd say it's gonna be way more effective if you're the one involved with the discipling and you're there walking side by side with that person, because I don't think every person has the exact same path, exact same journey. You know, the way that I might start after I gave my life to Jesus is going to be different than the way that you would, or maybe the way that your friend would. And so I think that someone being there just to answer questions and just to be there for that person is far better than a video would ever do. So, you know, just hang out with them. Hey, you know, let's go out for a cup of coffee, let's hang out and let's talk. And so you can start the conversation by saying something like, oh, hey, congratulations on your decision. Like, I'm super stoked for you. I'm very proud for you. I've been praying for you. And I just want to let you know that I'm here to support you. If you ever have any questions, if there's anything that you ever want to talk about, I just want to let you know that I'm here. And maybe even give them like a good book that you would suggest. Like, I don't know, what's a good book? Like Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis or something like that. Just basically, hey, here's something that maybe just to kind of get the ball rolling. And if you have questions, you know, I just want to let you know I'm here for you. And so just available, I think, is really the most important thing. If that person made a decision to give their life to God, you know, clearly God is already working in their life. And so I don't think you got to really like push it further than that. I don't think you got to really stress out too much about that. Let's see what else. I'm putting the camera down because my arms are getting tired. I've been going to the gym lately, and my shoulders are just like burnt out right now. Kyle, I've seen your comment a couple times. Friends that think that they believe in God means that they're Christians. What do you think? I'm not 100% sure, because you know there are people that believe in God but that aren't Christians. For example, Muslims or Jews, or even certain degrees of Buddhists or things like that. So just because you believe in God doesn't necessarily mean you're a Christian per se. So if you believe in the Christian version of God, if you believe in Jesus Christ, then yeah, you're a Christian. Justine, good question. How can I do a video on Christian books you suggest? I've done a video where there's 5 books that I suggest already. You just search on YouTube top Christian books. My video should be the very first one there, and it'll give you a couple videos that I recommend. And then if you have any other questions, feel free to let me know after that. Man, coffee is so good. One of my favorite parts about waking up early in the morning is getting some good coffee. Let's see. Oh, don't worry. You don't got to be sorry for spamming, Kyle. I just haven't been able to respond to it because I've been responding to other comments. So it's okay. Let's see. Rose says, I feel like when you give situations that God has acted in your life, non-believers are quick to pass it up as a coincidence. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's fair. I mean, think about it from your perspective. What would you have to do, or what would someone have to tell you in order to convince you that God is not real? You're not going to just accept it right away. So that type of a shift of worldview, that type of a shift of philosophy, to go from atheist to Christian, or to go from Christian to atheist, is not an easy decision. It's a very big, world transforming decision. And so, you know, of course, they're going to push back from you. And so if someone became a Christian just like that, just because of one story, like, I would be skeptical of that person's conversion, because, you know, it doesn't seem like it's very well established. There's not a good foundation. So I don't think that that's a bad thing. I just think it's just something that you got to be aware of. Continue to pray for them, continue to be there, and do what you can to let God work through you. Let's see. Kwame. Oh, hey Kwame, good to see you. I remember reading through your, I think it's Facebook messages. You asked, would I mind talking a little bit about how difficult it was for you to take a leap of faith in starting the channel and pursuing online ministry? How afraid were you of failure? Okay, so when I first started the channel, it wasn't like my goal to really go into full-time ministry with it or anything like that. It was just kind of a hobby, something that I did on the side of my job, on all of my other interests. So at that point, it really wasn't that difficult to do, because it was very minimally committed. It was just, oh, I'm going to put videos out when I can. And then it was maybe about 8 months later that I decided to quit my job. So if you're talking about that experience, that was a little bit more difficult. There was certainly an element of faith, but not as much as you would think. At least it wasn't terribly difficult for me, because I really felt like God was leading me to make that decision. Like I had been praying this prayer for a while, and he had made certain things clear to me that this is what he had wanted me to do in that season of my life. So it was because I've trusted God in the past. I was like, oh, okay, you've led me this far. You've never led me astray. And so even though I may not completely see the end goal in mind, cool, I'll do it. And it wasn't really that difficult. In fact, I would say it would be harder for me to stay where I was than it would for me to take that quote unquote leap of faith. The way that you got to look at it is when God's calling you to take a step of faith, there's really two risks involved: the risk of actually taking that step of faith, and the risk of not taking that step of faith. And when you think about it from a Christian perspective, which one is the greater risk? Is there a greater risk in following God, or is there a greater risk in not following God? And when you look at it like that, obviously the risk of not following God is way worse. That's going to be the really risky thing to do. Like, sure, God could redeem your obstinance, sure, God could redeem like your lack of faith and make it better somehow, but that's not the route that you want to go, or that's not the route that I want to go. And so I think it would have been harder for me to not follow God's leading than it would have been for me to take that quote unquote leap of faith. So it's all a matter of perspective, man. It really is, yeah, whatever God's calling you to do in this season of your life, yeah, it's a leap of faith in a certain sense. But in another sense, it's the lesser of two evils. I mean, what do you want to do? You want to live life on your own through your own leading, or do you want God to lead you? And for me, I've always wanted, not always, but I've wanted to side with what God has been leading me to do. Kyle Jord, what advice would I give to people starting their channel? I mean, it all depends on what type of channel you're trying to create. If you're creating an entertainment channel, if you're creating a tech review channel, if you're doing a daily vlog, it's all kind of different, but the basic principle is the same. You have to create content that is valuable to people. So you want to share something, whether it's just entertainment or advice or reviews, things that people are looking for and that people will value. And I think that when you do that, they'll keep coming back. Just J Dub. Just know, walking with Jesus Christ is not an easy thing to do. It's actually one of the most difficult decisions you can make in life. I agree with you and I disagree with you, and it's not a bad thing. Yes, there are moments in the Christian life where it's really difficult, where it's challenging, where you have to live by faith and you don't always know the end story. But on the flip side, Jesus talks about he's come to give us life and life more abundant. So there's like these two concepts that are always in tension. That's kind of a paradox. Jesus says, if you want to follow me, pick up your cross daily and deny yourself and follow me. So yeah, it's difficult on one end. On the other end, life and life more abundance. And so you have to kind of weigh those two. So it's not only, flowers and roses and unicorns and rainbows. It's not only positive, like just everything's going to be perfect. And it's not only sacrifice and martyrdom and like denying yourself. There's truth to both. But I will say this, that the decision to follow Jesus has been a decision I've never regretted. And I would say on the whole, my life with Jesus has been infinitely better than my life without Jesus. So there's truth to what you're saying, but I also disagree a little bit with you. Yo, Joel, what's up, Tiny? I'm at a coffee shop here in Vancouver, just hanging out, my favorite spot. Got a nice little cold brew, and just figured I'd go live and hang out with you guys a little bit. Good to see you, man. Let's see. Ooh, I like this question. Leah, or Leia, depending on how you pronounce it. Advice for starting a Christian group in school. I think that's number one. That's awesome that you want to do that, especially if you're in like a public school or a secular school or something like that. So 2 things I would say. Number 1, make sure you're not doing it alone. Make sure you have a good community of like the same age people, friends that you want to do this with. Have at least 4, 5, 6 people that are committed to it as well. Don't try and do this alone. That's actually the same second point of advice I was going to give you. The second point is make sure you have a mentor, someone who's done it before, someone who's successfully created those types of small groups already, that you can have and not someone your age, like someone who's older than you, who's in their 40s, 50s, or whatever the case is, and has experience and can give you advice. That is super key. There's nothing to say that you can't do this just by yourself with prayer and with God. Of course you could, but God oftentimes works through community. And so I guess the 2 pieces of advice are really: 1, don't do it alone. Make sure you have peers, and make sure you have mentors. Let's see. Oh, okay. Joshino94. I just found my faith and want to go to church and find a great community to help me on my journey, but I'm not sure where to start. There's so many, and I don't have any Christian friends. Any advice? Well, hello, welcome. If you don't have any Christian friends, you can consider myself your first Christian friend. I'd be happy to be your friend. So my advice would be definitely is kind of like, try and find that community of people that can really be there to support you. You do want to find that community. I'm very big on that. So try to find a place where you can find similarly aged people that are there to encourage you in your walk. So if you're in your teens, try and find a church that has similar aged people, so that way you can have people that you can relate to. But the second piece that I would suggest is really try to become a student of the Word of God. Obviously, there's a lot of different denominations. And that's because, many churches differ on different theology and different beliefs, and that's okay. But what I would suggest is find like a good Bible study program. There's a Bible study program that I actually recommend. It's in the link in the description bar of this video. It's called TruthLink, and it's a series of Bible study guides that I helped design and produce. I would really suggest you start there and make it a habit to study the Bible on your own personally, and then also secondarily go and engage in a community. So start off with that. Try truthlink.org. There's a link in the description bar, and I think it'll really help you out, especially if you're starting from brand new. And then if you have any questions, feel free to message me on Facebook or Instagram, whatever the case is. I'm always happy to hang out with you, to do like a Skype session or something like that, and to answer any questions. But welcome to the Christian family. I'm super stoked for you. That's super exciting. That's cool. KG Nemo, am I gonna keep the man bun? Got the man bun. I've been growing it since November, and I just started kind of trimming the edges because when my hair's down, it comes down to here. It's like super long. I'm gonna keep it at least until the end of winter, because if I cut my hair before winter, then my head's gonna be like frozen all winter. After that, I'll decide if I want to or not. I don't know. Maybe I'll even throw it up to a vote for the YouTube channel, and you guys can help me decide, or something like that. And if I do end up cutting my hair or something like that, I could live stream it or video it or something along those lines. But yeah. Well, there you go, Yoshi. A lot of people in the comment sections are saying that they're always looking for brothers and sisters in Christ as well. So you guys can connect with each other here. And that's the cool thing about the internet nowadays, is even if you live in a part of the world where you don't have any Christian communities nearby, through the internet you can connect with so many people. Art. Here's a good question. How would you stay strong in your faith with God when your family doesn't promote God in their home lives and calls you Christian nanny? Is that what their kind of insult to you is, the Christian nanny? That's hard. Obviously your family has a huge impact in the way that you live your life, and it can be really challenging to stay strong in your beliefs, especially when your parents, siblings, friends, and all that kind of stuff. So if your family isn't supporting you, then the reality is that when you accept Jesus into your life, you're actually adopted. The Bible talks about you're adopted into the family of God. And so this is where church community is super key. Going to midweek prayer meetings and small group Bible studies. So not just church on the weekends, but try to make that a more regular part of your day-to-day or your weekly experience. Try and find that support and that encouragement through your church family. I think that'd be super helpful. And you'll find out that as close as you are to your like blood family, you can actually develop just as strong ties within your church community. And I think that'd be really valuable. Dom, have I ever baptized somebody? Yeah, actually I have. I've had the privilege of baptizing a handful of people. It's always a huge honor when people ask me to do that, and I'm always very excited to do it. So yeah, I have baptized a handful of people. In fact, on my Facebook, there's photos of it, I believe. Yeah. Let's see. Good questions, guys. Kayla is asking, do I have advice for sharing the gospel while still being respectful? Yeah. I think paying attention to tone is super important. I think one of the difficult things is, how do I communicate my convictions without appearing condescending? And that's actually something, honestly, I struggle with a lot, because I'm a very passionate person. And generally speaking, when you start speaking faster and when you start speaking more loudly, and especially if you have a lot of enthusiasm like I tend to have, it can come across really condescending to someone who doesn't share that belief. And so what I would say is, when you share your faith, keep in mind a certain principle. This is something I've heard people say a lot. You've probably heard it. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Therefore, you should be listening twice as much as you are actually speaking. Sharing is important, but you know what helps more is actually asking questions and listening. You'll find that when Jesus is doing ministry in the Gospels, the vast majority of times he actually starts his interactions with people with questions as opposed to just telling them. Very few people respond well to when you just walk up to them and tell them what they need to be doing. Instead, ask good questions. Learn how to ask good questions. There's a book by a man named Greg Koukl, and the book is called Tactics. Amazing book on how to ask good questions when it comes to like religious conversation. So Greg Koukl, Tactics, which actually I'm plugging a couple books, so I'm going to plug the Audible. If you don't have an Audible account yet, audibletrial.com/thatchristianvlogger gets you a free audiobook, and it actually helps me support the channel. You can get Tactics for free by going to audibletrial.com/thatchristianvlogger. It helps support the channel, and you get the book I'm recommending for free. It's amazing. It's such a good book. And even if you don't use the Audible trial and you want to just buy it on your own, like, that's totally cool. Just it's an awesome book. I would highly suggest it. Let's see what else. Lena, sorry if I mispronounced your name, is asking, I'm going to be getting some non-Christian roommates soon, and I wanted to ask you if I have any good tips on being a good witness to them. Yeah, realize that most things are caught, not taught. Now, this is something I've heard in like parenting seminars. Not that I have any children, but I like to learn. A lot of parenting seminars, the advice is, realize that most things are caught, not taught. They're going to learn more through what you do and how you live than what you say and what you preach. So keeping that in mind, live the example far more than you try and tell them. Instead of telling them what to do, just be a consistent example of someone who's seeking after God with their whole heart. And if you do that, you're more likely to influence their life, because God's Spirit is going to be able to work on their hearts. So don't try and force anything onto them. Just live it out. And when they have the opportunity to ask you questions about it, be very gentle, be very patient with how you share your answers there. Simon Julianus, hi from Indonesia. What is up, Indonesia? You know, interestingly enough, I've had a bunch of people order shirts in the last couple of days from Indonesia. And I'm like, is this a scam? I've never had so many people order internationally all in one day. And so hello from Indonesia. Good to see you guys, and thanks for hanging out with us today. Simone Robledo says, does God answer prayers prayed with doubt? While doubt is never the ideal thing, I think God does meet you where you are at. Think of the, what's the one? It's the story where Jesus says to, I think it's a centurion, he says actually, let me just look it up. so I can give you an actual text. I got my computer right behind this phone. Okay, so in Mark chapter 9, the story of a father who comes to Jesus saying, hey, heal my son. Jesus says, if you can believe, Mark 9:23, Jesus says to him, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. Notice the man's response, and I love it. He says, immediately the father of the child cries out and says with tears, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. In other words, like, I believe, but I also am struggling with doubts. And so this immediately applies to your question. And notice what happens. Jesus commands the Spirit to come out of the Son. So yes, God does answer prayers that are even tainted with a little bit of doubt. God is able to meet you where you're at. Again, doubt's never the ideal, but God is gracious enough to be able to help you in those situations, for sure. Let's see. Good questions, guys. You guys are on it. Good stuff. Let's see. Tally, or Taylor, says, how do you counsel a person that is extremely close to you without falling into temptation that you recently got out of? I hope that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, you can be there to pray and encourage, but if you are both struggling with the same thing, maybe you need to bring a third person into the equation. It's kind of like if two people are struggling with an addiction to, say, I don't know, cigarettes, they're going to be probably the worst pair for each other and the best pair, because when one falls, the other one's more likely to follow suit. But if they can both be successful and get each other out of it, like, that would be super helpful. But bringing a third party into the equation will probably help the most, someone who's overcome that temptation as well. So try and broaden your circle just a little bit. KG Nemo, do I have a gym routine? Yes, I do. A friend of mine runs like a fitness company, supplement company, and I just started using their supplements, and they've written me a gym program, and I just started doing it recently. I'm probably going to end up doing a video or two on it in the next couple of weeks, but I want to be consistent with it first. So I'm working on it. SEW saying, or CW, good evening from Belgium. Hello from Belgium. It's morning here in the United States. I wonder if you can know, how do you know the right church and denomination is? Obviously everybody who you ask this question to is going to have a different response, because we all have different denominations. We all have different beliefs. Some people's belief is that you should be non-denominational. Some people's belief is that you should be Methodist. Some people believe that you should be Baptist. If you ask me, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, so that's where I would lead you. But the first thing that I would say, obviously, and this is the advice that everyone else will give you, is you want to find a church that aligns with the Word of God. And so, that's challenging to do, but the only way to know if a church does that is by being a student of the Word yourself. So I would encourage you to really critically look at the beliefs of a church. So you don't want to pick a church, you don't want to pick a denomination because you like their music. You don't want to pick it because the pastor is funny. You don't want to pick it because they have good potlucks or your friends go there. Like, those are all important reasons, but that's not the number one reason why you should be choosing one church or one denomination over the other. At the end of the day, it really ought to be about what do they say about God, what is their interpretation of the Bible, and does it align with what you see in it. So if you have more questions about specific things, then you can always reach out to me and message me, and I'd love to chat with you about that. But I think that's the easiest, broadest answer I can share with you guys. Beard Ministry in the house. What's up, Josh? Man, good to see you. My favorite board game. Okay, I love board games. And if any of you ever saw me playing board games, I think many of you guys would be surprised when I go, because, okay, so I grew up in a family where we were very, very, very competitive. My brother. Oh, it looks like we cut out for a second there. Sorry about that, guys. But my favorite, I was answering the question from Josh Beard Ministry. My favorite board games is Settlers of Catan and Risk. So, yeah. Let's see. Kyle Jord, if Jesus was born in Jerusalem, what language did he speak? Likely Hebrew and even some Greek and Aramaic, possibly as well. Let's see. Amber, great question. If you have a friend who comes to church but does not follow Christ but asks you out, what would you do? Well, for me, that'd be awkward because I'm married, so I would say no. But if I was in your situation, I would still say no. The Bible talks a lot about the importance of not being unequally yoked. And when it comes to relationships, dating, and certainly down the line marriage, you do not want to be like paired up with someone who has differing beliefs than you do. I don't think that that's a wise thing to do. Sure, it can work. I know that people have made it work in the past, but it is definitely not the ideal thing to do. And so I would definitely counsel against it. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that they're immoral or that they're evil people. It's just, it's not wise to do. And so I would suggest against it. Sorry guys, I'm getting a couple notifications of bad connections here. I apologize. I'm in a coffee shop with Wi-Fi. I thought it would be good. Maybe it's not. Rose Beckhurst, can you explain your wedding band? I've been curious for ages. Yeah, it's a rubber wedding ring by a company called Qalo, Q-A-L-O, or Qalo. I don't know how to pronounce it. Halo. And I like it because I love the color red and because I can wear it when I go to the gym or something like that. Let's see. Hopefully the connection's getting, I'm seeing that the connection's getting a little bit better now. Sorry guys if it's cutting out. Nothing I can do about it right now. It's just J-Dub. Name a struggle you currently have in life. I mean, I'm like everybody else, man. I have the same struggles that everyone has. You know, I struggle with pride. I struggle with arrogance. I struggle with humility. I struggle with my temper. I struggle with lust. I struggle with patience. I mean, basically anything that you struggle with, I'm sure that I'm struggling with as well. There's no sense that I'm more further down the line or more accomplished than any of you guys. I mean, I struggle with things too. Dom, post your question again if I missed your question. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the questions, but you guys are really lively in the chat, which is great. Yeah, by the way, if I miss any of your questions, go ahead and just repost it. Keep reposting it, you know, and I'll try and do my best to get back to you. Kyle, if other religions' gods have names, what is the name of our God? The Hebrews would say that the name of God is Yahweh. We would say that's fine, or Jehovah, Yahweh. It's kind of a different translation of those four characters. Jesus, I think, is just as good. You know, Jesus is God under Christianity, so I think those are all good answers. Justine says, have you ever had anyone from YouTube ask to visit their church and speak? Yeah, I've spoken at several churches, academies, conferences, things like that. I've been doing a lot of traveling and speaking over the last couple of months. So yeah, if your church is interested, send me an email. I am Philly Awesome. What makes you do videos on YouTube? I love interacting with you guys. I love sharing kind of what I'm learning and what I'm thinking about, and then hearing back from you guys and sharing in your experience. Like we got to hear about Yoshi just coming to the church for the, you know, or coming to God really at the very beginning. I think that's awesome. So just being able to hear your guys' stories and to share mine, I think that's really what I love about it most. You have a snapback. Just Jay says, I have a snapback with Yahweh on it, custom made. Pretty cool. Okay, Tom, here's your question. The Bible warns against pride and arrogance, but is against having anxieties. Could you do a video on how you try to remain confident but not arrogant? I think one of the mistakes is that we define ourselves by what we can do, what we can accomplish. I am, to society's eyes, more valuable or more important because I'm smarter, better looking, I'm more fit, I'm richer, I'm more accomplished, I'm more educated, whatever the case is. Like, this is how society says your value is determined by what you do or what you've accomplished. And so if I've accomplished a lot, then I can be both very confident, I can be very arrogant because I've accomplished a lot. I don't think that this is the Christian way of understanding your worth or your value. Your worth and your value is determined by what God says about you. And I can be confident about that even when I'm not feeling super excited about myself. So if I realize in my down days that it's not about what I accomplish, it's about what God says, then I know my value, I know my worth, even when I'm feeling down. But the converse is true. On the days that I am very successful, on the days that I'm doing very well, I can not allow that to get to my head because I realize that all these good things that I'm doing, that's still not what defines me. What defines me is what God says about me. And so I think it really comes down to how do you define yourself? How do you find your own value and worth? You do it through what God says about you, nothing else. And so that gives you both the confidence to know who you are, but also keeps you humble about who you are, because you realize, you know what God says about me is, yeah, I am fallen. I am degenerate. I am a sinner in need of grace. So there's nothing that makes me better than anybody else, because in the eyes of God, we're all the same. So that could never allow me to become arrogant, because I realize arrogance is me saying I'm better than you, but I could never be better than you. And even if I'm more accomplished, even if I have more wealth or more more things or whatever the case is, I'm still not better than, say, like a homeless person on the street. We're all equal under the eyes of God. And so I think it really comes down to how do you define your self-worth. Let's see. Broski, what's up? In the house, man. It's not the King James, I'm out. Hey guys, a good friend of mine, the Broski, he's in the live chat right now. You guys should check out his channel. He's got some really good stuff. He does Christian content kind of from like a satirical kind of comedy perspective. I think you guys will really enjoy his stuff. I've been enjoying his videos, especially recently. They've been really, really good. And he did a little expose on me, exposing that Christian vlogger. Pretty funny stuff. You should check it out. His question though, what translation do I read? Right now, I am reading through the English Standard Version the most. I've done, in my experience as a Christian, the majority of what I've been reading was the King James Version, ironically. But I really have been enjoying the English Standard Version at this point. Let's see. Polly Lowe. Okay, asking a question about the Trinity. Did I just say that Jesus is God for Christians, or did I get that wrong? Because the Bible says that he is the Son of God. Okay, so there's a lot of misunderstanding about the phrase Son of God. So let me just answer the question first. Yes, I believe that Jesus is, in fact, God, verily God. I do believe in the concept of the Trinity, or the Godhead is probably a better description of it. Yes, the Father is God, but I also believe that Jesus and the Spirit as well also are God. So when Jesus was using the phrase the Son of God, he wasn't using that to say that he was a lesser degree. In fact, the Hebrews in the Old Testament, whenever you look up the phrase Son of God, it was actually phrase, it was actually an idiom for the divine, and so when he was using the phrase the Son of God, the Jews would understand that not as a lesser degree than God, but actually just as equal. In fact, you see this in the New Testament when Jesus claims to be the Son of God. The priests, the Pharisees and Sadducees, wanted to stone him for blasphemy, for claiming that he was God. So we might understand it differently than the Hebrews in those days understood it. When the Hebrews heard the phrase Son of God, they understood that Jesus was claiming to be God. Hopefully that's helpful. If not, I can try and do a full video on the subject of the Trinity or the Godhead, but that's, yeah, hopefully that helps. Okay, there's getting to be more people here at the shop, so I'm going to end up shutting down the live stream in just a few minutes, because it's probably going to get loud with all the kids hanging out here soon. So, yeah. CO1, so 1. Interesting screen name. Justin, I was waiting for live chat. Hello, I'm here. I'm only gonna be here for a few more minutes. Sorry about that. But if you turn on the channel notifications, you'll be able to know when I go live in the future, and you'll be able to jump on at the very beginning. So sorry, I'm only gonna be hanging out for like the next 5 minutes. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful. I'm checking out any of the other comments, see if I missed anything. Tom, oh hey, check it out, with the £5 super chat donation. Thank you. His comment says, thanks man, I'm praying for you. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate your prayers, and I appreciate the little donation, the gift. That helps out quite a bit. Thank you very much. Dom, Justin, did you get my question? Let me scroll back and see if I got your question. Can I talk more about the persecuted church and what does it mean to me on November 5 for the International Day of Prayer for the Persecuted Church? Open Doors USA is a good resource. Okay, I don't know much about the November 5 thing. Actually, your comment is the first I've heard about it, so I actually don't know very much about it. And if you're asking me to talk about the persecuted church, I don't know very much about it. I don't have a lot of interaction with people from like international, so if I were to share something, I would just be sharing out of ignorance, so I prefer not to do that. So maybe you can inform me, and I'll have some better ideas and opinions. How are those wireless earbuds? They're awesome. I love them. They're super good. I've been basically using them every day ever since I got them, and they're pretty sweet from switching from phone to computer or different devices. And when I come out in public like this, I can actually live stream and have, I think, a better source of audio. You guys tell me if the audio source is good or not when I'm like right now. Is it clear, or can you hear like a ton of background? Am I coming through loudly enough? I feel like having this makes the live streams better. So, did I catch the CrossFit Games this year? No, I missed it. I was actually speaking at a conference in Texas during the entire duration of the CrossFit Games, so I missed it, and I feel like that kind of sucks. I haven't been actually watching CrossFit stuff over like the last year as much lately. I'll be honest. I used to watch all the games. I used to watch like the grid as well. I was into it a lot, but over the last year, I've kind of just lost interest in it. It's just been, I feel like, a lot of the same stuff. So, miss the games. I'd like to still go in person at some point in time. We'll see. Okay, cool. Audio is very clear. Voice comes through very well, even though there is background noise. Thanks. Appreciate that. Cool. It would be great to do a live stream of the church that I go to. Yeah, I don't mind doing that. I'm open to doing that. The church that I go to is a really small church plant in the city of Portland. Maybe I can do a live stream at some point. Though it's not the most interesting thing to watch, you know, like you can watch any church service live at any point in time. I think that what makes live streams cool is that kind of like the back and forth interaction, like I get to talk to you and you get to talk back to me or something along those lines. Paul and Morgan, favorite exercise at the gym? I love squats. Favorite thing. I like training legs, which is backwards from what everyone else do. For me, I hate training upper body. What church do I go to? The church is called Gather and Scatter, and it's in Portland, Oregon. So if you're ever in the Portland area and you're free on the weekend and you want to come check out the church that I go to, I'd love to have you out there with me. Where am I at right now? I'm at a coffee shop in Vancouver, Washington. Mariah, oh hey, good to see you, Mariah. Your question, I'm very interested in Ellen White, but I'm not 100% trusting in her words. You believe she was a true prophet of God? It's a very complicated subject. Short answer is yes, and there's a lot more that goes on. I'd love to hang out with you and talk to you about it. I've got a lot of questions about Adventism from the video that I did a couple of weeks ago on it with follow-up questions. So I'm planning on doing something responding to a lot of those types of questions in the future. But it's a much longer conversation than I'm wanting to have right now at the live stream, especially trying to shut things down right now. Okay, I'm gonna...
We are gonna have a kids story time right
Do you need to be right here?
Yes. Well, all the kids are gonna come.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
So it'll be a few minutes.
Not a problem.
Okay, here, come over here.
See, this is what
Yeah, put it right here.
this is what I'm talking about.
Good girl, yay.
So here at the coffee shop, they also have kids programs. And I was sitting in the kids area, as some of you guys saw earlier, and they're saying, I need to move now. So I'm just gonna shut down the live stream now since I gotta move. Got a couple errands to run today. Then I'm hanging out with my, then I'm hanging out with my younger brother, who's visiting this city today. And so if you guys wanna follow that journey on Instagram, you can hit me up at jkoo. It looks like at jkho, but that's not what the screen name is intended for. My last name is Koo, Justin Koo, jkoo. Yeah, if you want to hang out further or have any other questions or anything like that, hit me up on all of the different social medias, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anything else like that, and I'd love to connect with you guys. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me in this live stream. If you aren't already, go ahead and subscribe for new content. I put out videos every Monday and Thursday, and I do the occasional random live streams like this, so definitely do the channel notifications if you want to jump on board in a future live stream. But thank you guys so much. It's good to hang out with you guys, and I will see you guys in our next video. And as I like to say, until next time, I'm that Christian vlogger, and I would encourage you to experience faith in the first person. God bless, guys.